Hey everyone, and welcome to the Read Aloud for Tuesday over the Lincoln-Douglas debate. So once again, to go ahead and find your document to read and follow along, you'll go into Google Classroom and go down to April 14th because it is Tuesday. Click on the Lincoln-Douglas debates and go ahead and open up the document. So I'm going to go ahead and read through the directions and the guiding question with you guys, and I'll read through the document and explain any confusing terms or give you some background information where need be. But this is to help you guys if you're having a hard time with the reading. So anyways, let's go ahead and get rolling. So our directions, go ahead and read about the Lincoln-Douglas debates below. While you read, mark the text according to the guiding question. Underline main ideas and circle key terms that directly relate to or answer the guiding question. Very, very, very similar to yesterday in that regard. The only difference is we have a different guiding question and a different reading. So our question for today, what ideas were being debated? Okay, so this is a debate between Lincoln and Douglas. We'll get into just who they are in just a second, okay? But your guiding question is, what ideas are they talking about? Okay, what topics are they debating? All right, the Lincoln-Douglas debates. What happened? Imagine standing in a hot, dusty town in central Illinois during the summer of 1858 as excursion trains bring thousands of visitors from all over the state. A hastily prepared speaker's platform has just been constructed, and partisans on both sides are cheering for their champions in a hotly contested race for a seat in the U.S. Senate between Abraham Lincoln and Stephen Douglas. Okay, so in 1858, Stephen Douglas and Abraham Lincoln are running against each other to be the senator from Illinois, okay, to be one of the senators from Illinois. That's why they're debating. This campaign for the United States Senate began in Springfield, Illinois on June 16th, when Lincoln was nominated by the Republican convention. That evening, the Republican nominee delivered his famous House Divided speech that set the tone for the Senate race. I believe, he told a packed House, this government cannot endure prematurely, let me restart that. This government cannot endure permanently half slave and half free. It would be, he added, become all one or all the other. In Chicago 3 weeks later, Stephen Douglas attacked Lincoln for advocating boldly and clearly a war of sections, a war of North against the South. And he emphasized that the fundamental principle underlying our Constitution contemplated diversity and dissimilarity in the domestic affairs of each and every state. Basically, Douglas is saying Lincoln is clearly dividing the North and the South, and it's really important that in our Constitution, one of the most important things is diversity. Different types of people, different groups of people, different perspectives. Okay, and he's saying Lincoln is trying to get rid of that. In response, that evening, Lincoln responded by addressing an audience about 3/4 as large and 4 times as enthusiastic as Douglas's. The issues were thus joined, and Lincoln's managers scheduled their candidates' speaking engagements to follow Douglas's announced appearances. On July 24th, Lincoln challenged his opponent to a series of debates. Douglas accepted this challenge on the same day. Altogether, 7 debates about 3 hours apiece were held in 7 different towns. The debaters and the issue. As the debates progressed, Lincoln defined the fundamental differences between himself and Douglas based on the idea that one class that looks upon the institution of slavery as a wrong and of another that doesn't. So here's the main issue. One group of people sees slavery as wrong and one does not. And that is what Lincoln is going to make the main issue of his campaign for senator in 1858. Douglas, too, claimed to be supporting a fundamental principle, that of self-government, the right of the people to rule. Indeed, ideas basic to our system of government, the right of men to be free as well as the right of men to make their own laws, were at issue in the debates. This clash over cherished and conflicting values, articulated by their most powerful spokesman, gave these debates an importance far greater than the election that inspired them. Okay, basically they're saying these debates, the debate of slavery and the debate of self-government, the right for one to make his own laws or a group of people to make their own laws, okay? These ideas, the fact that they're fighting over this is probably more important than voting for a senator, okay? All right, where'd we leave off? Right here. As Lincoln and Douglas wearily crisscrossed Illinois, every word and gesture of theirs was followed by newspapermen and reported to an entire nation. The debaters argued over the rights of blacks under the Constitution, the Dred Scott decision, and the charge that slavery could become national. Okay, so the Dred Scott decision that you guys learned about yesterday is going on as part of these debates. Also, let me go ahead and zoom in a little bit for you guys. Sorry, I forgot to do that sooner. Their arguments helped formulate and crystallize opinions on both sides. The winner in Illinois was Stephen Douglas. Though Lincoln lost this race for the Senate, he defeated Douglas 2 years later in his bid for the presidency, a victory made possible by these debates. Okay, so this is at the point where Lincoln really starts to make a big name for himself. Okay, all right, let's go ahead and scroll on down. Okay, we're going to analyze two quotes, okay, one from Lincoln, one from Douglas, and really see the central idea of what both of them stood for, okay? Let's start with Abraham Lincoln. A house divided against itself cannot stand. I believe this government cannot endure permanently half slave and half free. I do not doubt the Union to be dissolved. I do not expect the house to fall, but I do expect it will cease to be divided. It will become all one thing or all the other. Either the opponents of slavery will arrest the further spread of it and place it where the public mind shall rest in the belief that it is the course of ultimate extinction, or its advocates will push it forward. Shall it be alike lawful in all states, old as well as new, north as well as south? So what is Lincoln saying here? Okay, basically he is saying a house divided or a country divided against itself cannot stand. If the country is divided on the issue of slavery, it cannot stay together. So one of two things will happen. Either slavery will be pushed forward and expand across the entire nation, or it will be ended everywhere in the United States. Okay? One of those two things has to happen for the country to stay together. That is what Lincoln is saying. All right? Let's go ahead and look at Douglas. The principle of the right of each state to do as it pleases in its own domestic affairs. All right, let's go ahead and look at Douglas. The principle of the right of each state to do as it pleases in its own domestic affairs, subject to the Constitution, and allow to the people of each to apply to every new change of circumstance such remedy as they may see fit to improve their condition. This right they have for all time to come. All right, what is Douglas saying here? Basically, he is saying each state has a right to control itself. What is happening in that state, as long as it does not break the Constitution, is up to the people. Okay, the people get to decide what happens in that state. Okay, basically, and the point of that, the point of why can a state determine what happens with inside it is each state has different things that happen to it, and when those things happen to it, they need the ability to fix those things themselves. And so that is why Douglas is saying they each have that right. Okay, and he is saying that they've had that for all time, since the beginning of the country or even before that, and it will continue to be that way. That essentially is the idea of popular sovereignty that we've been talking about. And that is what Douglas is saying is his main idea. Okay? All right, let's go ahead and look at our questions. They are in your note sheet. So we're going to jump back to Google Classroom here. Click on the 1850 student note sheet. Open it up. We'll scroll down to Tuesday. Once again, April 14th. Maybe if I can get to load. There we go. First question. What were the Lincoln-Douglas debates about? What were those debates about? Pretty straightforward. Go ahead and answer that. How do they foreshadow the conflict to follow? Foreshadow. That's an interesting word. Basically, how do they predict? Okay? How are they showing us what will happen in the future? How are they showing us that the Civil War is probably going to happen? Okay? According to the debates, what were two of the causes of the Civil War? Okay, so according to the debate, what are two reasons why the Civil War does end up happening? What are two of the main points that they are divided on? What do Douglas and Lincoln disagree on? Those are probably going to be your two causes of the Civil War that come from these debates. Okay, that is all for today. Thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me through email or texting on Remind. Otherwise, that is all, and thanks for listening.